Douglas MacArthur, a thundering paradox of a man, noble and ignoble, inspiring and outrageous. He was America's most gifted and most controversial man of arms, a soldier come emperor, an American Caesar.
Douglas MacArthur is a well-known figure, most commonly known for serving in World War I, II, and the Korean War. In World War I, MacArthur was a career Army officer and the military leader for the Americans. He was cited battlefield bravery when he later became the division commander. In World War II, he served as Supreme Allied Commander. In this documentary, we'll be focusing on MacArthur and his impact on the Korean War. The Korean War began in June of 1950, after World War II, due to when the North Korean communists started invading the South. Before the Korean War, Japan had occupied Korea. Korea had been a Japanese colony from 1910 until 1945. During the Korean War, the Soviet Union occupied the North and the U.S. occupied the South. China began to spread communism to North Korea, and the North Korean communists had started getting closer and closer to invading all of South Korea. The North Korean communists had invaded past the 38th parallel, the division between the North and South, and they also got very close to invading all of South Korea. On June 30th, MacArthur had heard the South began losing hope, as well as men and equipment. The South Koreans were leaving and forgetting their supplies. The next morning after that, the president, Harry Truman, sent out one combat team to Korea to help out the South Koreans. Douglas MacArthur's first thought for the Korean War was to accomplish victory in North Korea, while everything else was a secondary thought. He intended to win in Korea. He wanted to defeat the North Korean army as soon as possible. He feared that the Russian and Chinese communists would aid the North Korean army and ship more items and supplies. He feared losing would cause political dangers. If they had lost, he feared others would be disappointed and lose confidence with the United States. He also thought that serving in the war could help him get back into the tide of things. Hope of winning faded when MacArthur was relieved his position as general. MacArthur was relieved the April of 1951 because Harry Truman, the 33rd President of the United States, feared of a World War III after MacArthur made a statement threatening to expand the war. I reached out to someone who works at the MacArthur Museum in Norfolk, Virginia, and he said that when MacArthur was relieved, it was a watershed, both personally and professionally, and that it ended his career suddenly and finally.
Address you with neither rancor nor bitterness, in the fading twilight of life, with one purpose in mind, to serve my country.
In South Korea, they look up to MacArthur. His name is in history books, and kids are taught that he was a hero. There is a memorial specifically dedicated to MacArthur. It is in a city called Incheon, a little bit southwest of Seoul, the capital of South Korea. Not only is there a memorial, but there is also a street dedicated to MacArthur. This memorial was built in 1957, just 4 years after the Korean War. This memorial has been the center of lots of riots, from the people who want to take it down to the people who want this memorial to be known as cultural property, which is equivalent to a national landmark. One of the well-known battles in the Korean War took place in Incheon. This battle was known as the turning point in the Korean War. MacArthur led the forces to launch a surprise attack on the North Koreans, where they would sneak up on them and attack. This was the Battle of Incheon. This battle went from September 15th, 1950 until September 19th, 1950. This was a very special operation because the North Korean communists almost took over all of Korea but one small city called Busan. This battle was South Korea's last hope. MacArthur had his troops go to the West Sea to surprise attack the North and sneak up and disrupt the North Korean troops. There were even troops who went past the 38th parallel into the north, but the Chinese communists got involved and disrupted that. When all the conflict simmered down and the South had regained their capital, Seoul, they had a meeting revolving around how they would stop the conflict and sign an armistice agreement, but no formal peace treaty. So the war never officially ended until not too long ago, when the Korean dictator and president met in 2018. The Korean War had basically been going on for about 70 years. A little less than 7 months after the Battle of Incheon, MacArthur was relieved of his job as general. This was very sudden for MacArthur, and after he was relieved, the Korean War slowed down and almost took a halt. Although MacArthur was relieved of his position as general, he left a very good impact on Korea, and he is looked upon as a savior and a hero to many South Koreans. Korea is still divided at the 38th parallel, and the two countries have been tense for a pretty long time, and it hasn't been until more recently that the leaders are getting along with each other. On Thursday, September 20th, 2018, the North Korean dictator and South Korean president met for the third time in 2018. It was estimated that 100,000 people jammed the streets to welcome Moon, the South Korean president, when he visited Pyongyang, the capital of North Korea. The most recent time they met in Pyongyang, the capital of North Korea. When they met, they smiled and hugged. For the first time in many years, the leaders of Korea were getting along, and this was celebrated by many. The North Korean dictator also claimed he would fly out to Seoul as soon as possible. Many people were shocked with this statement. The North Korean leader was expected to visit South Korea before 2018 ended, but he never ended up going